Right now, there is blood on the streets. It's very, very fearful. And what I mean by that is the fear and greed index is at 10. And typically, when there's blood on the streets, that is your buying opportunity. When it's green and the greed index is like 80, 90, that's generally a time when you want to sell something. Euphoric means you sell. When you look at your portfolio and it's just like, wow, I'm so rich, that's a sell signal, typically. Not financial advice, let's dive in. So let's have a look at the past data to work out what are we going to see this time, potentially, if we have things that are going to repeat or rhyme. So right now, this is low. This is the lowest point we've been in. It's at 10, and this is the lowest point that we've been in 2.5 years, okay? And we can see we had this peak over here, which looked like it was around 93, 94. And this was when Bitcoin was like 97,000, but it had come up, pretty quickly from like 60,000. That was clearly a bit of a sign to start taking some profits. But if we go back to the previous time, we can see this, and this was covered in more detail by Jason Bazzino, by the way. So we can see this was from March 24 all the way to August, August 2024, when we had this 154 days from the peak to the absolute low in terms of greed. And so in this case, fear. So this is like a score of 15. So typically it looks as though it's around 150 days. And if we go back further, we can see the same thing happened in 2023, where we go from it was a bear market, so it wasn't as greedy, but like from 71 all the way down to 29. So it's around that 150-day mark. And we can go back further, don't have them marked on the chart, but we can see the last time it got really, really fearful was actually in June 2022. Luna had imploded, and this is where we went all the way down to 4. And that was at the end of the cycle, right? Like the cycle had done, it's finished, and then on to the next thing. Even when we got to November and FTX rugged, we still didn't actually go down to like below 10. So right now we're below 10. So what can we use this, how can we use this data? Well, obviously you could start DCAing and buying here if you want to. We can go a little bit lower. We do have a whole lot of information suggesting that we've got a hard month and a half because these tariffs came on like really, really strong, and then they're compounded by the Bybit attack and the crime season on Solana and whatnot. But it's a macro news that's dictating everything. So what we're really looking at is we probably have until April, mid-April, for things to start to look a little bit healthier because we're still pretty early. We're 97 days in, and we could come up a little bit. Like, we saw here, greed, fear was here, came up a little bit, got a little bit more like, oh, we're okay. And then they came on down. This could certainly happen again. So we can have maybe a time to not necessarily leverage up or something, unless that's what you want to do, but buy a little bit of spot backs. We still have some Solana that's coming to be unlocked. I don't think it's going to affect things necessarily, but like this chart, at 141, it's kind of gone down to like 130-ish. We have the Sol unlock coming on the 1st of March, and it could go down just a little bit lower, potentially. Where the speculation point on that is basically these companies, firms, whatever, they've gone and bought Sol well under $100 and they could sell it. I think it's more likely that they don't, that they are locked Solana tokens become unlocked and they hold them until it goes higher. It'd be strange to sell it right now, and they highly likely sold their Sol tokens, their unlocked tokens, at like 250, 260, something like that. That is what I would kind of expect. So as mentioned before, fear and greed is at 10. Lowest point, we'll give it a refresh, hasn't gone lower. Lowest point that's been in 2.5 years. And the liquidations we'll go over in a second. But right now, there are more people shorting the market. There's this skew here. You can see at the top, 51% of people, or 51% of trading volume and whatnot, are trying to push the price down because that's where they think the direction of the market's going. And there is a more like a 2.5% difference, which is kind of sizable. Now, if we have a look down here, Bitcoin exchange liquidation map, as price goes down lower and lower, all of the longs will be liquidated. So if we go all the way down to 83,000, there's a $1.6 billion worth of liquidations. So market makers can certainly push us down here, because if they try and push us up, then the liquidations are not as sizable, right? But they can push between the two because they're going to make money regardless. That's just a bit of a fact. But we can just see that there is still a heavy amount of short pressure pushing this down and not as much long pressure pushing it up. Now, if we have a look at range of finance, which I suggest you use, Referral said Monty, they have their token generation event coming up and they incorporate other dexes, so it's kind of cool. Basically, there is, with Sol in particular, there's a lot more people longing it than there are shorting it. So it doesn't have the same pressure. So you have to keep that in mind. Maybe Sol doesn't go down as low, but really, like, it's kind of a bit scary to trade right now. Okay, the other important thing to keep in mind is the daily exchange volume, the 7-day moving average, has picked up. So when we see all of this activity right here, and then it starts to drop off, well then, like, things are going to lose momentum. Even if we get this little pickup, which happened end of Jan for Sol, which we clearly see here, and then it kind of comes on down. You start to see this come on down, and like prices will be going down typically, but we've got a bit of a pickup right now. So that's all of the trading side. Let's get into the actual news. Market state visualization, bit of red, a little bit of greenery. The buyback hack was the craziest thing. The forensic report basically comes up saying that the conclusion is that Safe Wallet's infrastructure was actually to blame. Bybit were not actually the people at fault, even though, you know, they lost all this money. So this was absolutely crazy. CZ put out this post. This is like absolutely nuts, right? I usually try not to criticize other industry players, but basically this update from Safe, it's kind of vague. It doesn't give a whole lot of clarification. So was 1.4 billion the largest address managed by using Safe? How come they didn't target others? Like, what lessons can be learned from this? So this is very, very bearish for Safe, for sure. Like, entirely safe. Entirely not safe by Safe. You can have a read of it yourself. It's not going to matter to too many people, but like, it is a good time to learn that ledger. I've got a tutorial on it. Learn your ledger, keep yourself safe. Now, it is a bit of looks like it's coming a bit of an end to crime season. We've got the Gotbit CEO has been extradited to the US following his arrest in Portugal. And this has been charged with market manipulation, insider trading, and pump and dump schemes. So hopefully we're starting to get some more fun in this space. Also related to the Bybit hack, the FBI said North Korea is responsible. So, well, Zach XBT already did the work, but all good. Now, let's have a look at this here. This is one trader here. So Spoofy is likely one of the best and biggest traders on the market. This is per St. Pump. And his positions are built extremely slowly. 4,000 BTC isn't much for his size and will probably keep growing as the market dives deeper. And one thing here is this person was very, very patient. Now with this, you can see that they had a whole lot of Bitcoin and they started to sell it because it had been accumulating when it was far, far lower, and selling it some more, selling it some more, selling into this pump. And then at this point, they started to buy back in, and then as it got higher, they started to sell, but now started to buy back in, which is good to see. They're very, very patient, and that's obviously a good thing to see. But you can typically see that when they're buying, the price is kind of bottomed or close to bottoming, and when they start to sell and they sell out in a DCA method, the price continues to go up. So they've got a pretty decent track record here. Now, like, why did the markets tank? The markets tanked because of tariffs as a primary factor. President Trump announced 25% tariffs on the European Union, which is absolutely massive. And that meant that a whole lot of money was liquidated from crypto in 60 minutes. And Bitcoin fell under 83,000 before coming up again. Right now, there's a couple of tokens, like trending. Kato's doing very, very well. My shell, which I was LPing on BNB, but I exited most of it, so a bit of a silly decision there. If you are LPing on Uniswap, you're probably out of range here. Like I'll be out of range. I'll have to remove my ETH and maybe see if I want to re-enter. And Berachain is also kind of doing well, but everything else, it's just kind of struggling a little bit. Sol's down here. We're not sure what it's going to do. One reason why there's so much liquidity coming out of Bitcoin is because the CME futures premium dropped to 4%, which is the same annual return as 10-year US Treasury bonds. So apparently that's kind of a reason. I don't necessarily think that's the major reason. It's just one factor that goes into it. Also, Gemini co-founder Cameron Winklevoss has confirmed that the SEC has dropped its case against the crypto exchange. So this is another good thing, same as like Coinbase. And if we have a look at the Solana calendar, we can see we've got the new vote is live, went live yesterday. We've got until Sunday. So go and do this. I think it's pretty clear that people are going to vote no on it. So just, you can vote whatever you want. It's either Jupiter as a planet as it exists, which is the branding we know, or Jupiter as a cat. I love cats, but I don't think it's the right choice. There's a few other things that you can check out here as well, including Bonk Dragon into your Moonwalk wallet. And look, the Bonk Dragon claim ends tomorrow. So goodness, get amongst that. I'm pleased that was there. I didn't even realize that myself. Do that as a lesson today. Solana ETF's registration on DTCC, which is the first major step to getting on US stock exchanges. This has gone ahead. Doesn't mean it's approved or anything, but it's like a preliminary step. Now, we haven't discussed this really at all, to be perfectly honest, but Solana proposal SIMD 0228 could slash Sol inflation by 80% with voting set to start in 9 days. It's highly likely going to go ahead. And it'll mean that your staking rewards will drop significantly, but that means there's a lot less inflation. There are issues with it, of course. In the bear market, it will centralize the number of validators because it'll be very hard to be profitable. And we'll just have to see how it goes. Most people will be voting yes because it's better for the ecosystem overall, which is good. But it has some issues. The vote I've already covered. Just a big reminder, get amongst it. And also with Jup news, Jup 8 Pro is now merging with Jupiter Exchange. We've spoken about this before. It's now becoming Jup Trenches. It's still in beta, and it's not really like perfect for me yet. I've already left some feedback, and I hope that they have to actually get it in. It's going to take a little bit of time. We can't search by like 1 hour organic volume. We just have to look, unfortunately. We've got the market cap over here. We've got liquidity over here. So it still is kind of helpful, but gmgn.ai is still what I think is better. But we can see like if the price is going up in 1 hour somewhere. No, look, it still needs to be improved, to be honest. gmgn.ai is where people need to go right now. Speaking of gmgn.ai, one thing you can do if you want a short-term trade Jup, not financial advice, is before the planetary call or Jup rally, if things kind of look bearish, like if things are already, if RSI is high and whatnot. Strangely, RSI was high at this point. I mean, this is on the 5-minute chart, so we could probably zoom out. But if we're just looking at on the 5-minute chart or something low to see what our price movement has been, then we can buy before a Jup rally, and we can set into a DLMM to see if it has a bit of price improvement as it goes up. And like here is like a good example of like the buyback coming. It's up 13-14%, just like that. We could probably check it on like the 4-hour chart or something like that to actually work out like where the RSI is more accurately at this time, which was like the 24th or something. And the RSI we can see was very, very low. So that could be an indicator to enter, given that we knew that good news was likely coming. You could play it for that 10%, which is still sizable. Pump.fun drops out of the top 10 fee generating protocols. I'm sure they're going to come back in some element, but it is like, it's been good for Solana and net positive, but still like overall, it's hurt. So the graduations, this is the number of tokens that actually climb up a market cap to have an LP created on Radium, minus 53% monthly, weekly minus 76. Yesterday, only 186 tokens made it. The entire protocol falling off top free generators. And the last thing is, with Monad Verse, by the time I put out stuff, there's so much hype, you're just going to have to find your way a little bit, but I will be working on this because things are minting out very, very fast. This one was 7 hours, a whole lot of mints happening. So just keep in mind, put some attention on this sort of stuff if you're interested in that sort of stuff. Well, that's everything for today. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be live again tonight, 9 p.m. UTC, talking about DeFi, but any questions, we'll be taking it nice and short. 25 minutes or so will be the goal. In the meantime, subscribe and check out these videos over here.